Hello, Bond fans! Welcome back to another episode of our series GoldenEye, the 30th anniversary. I'm here again with Yannick. He sits in Switzerland and I'm of course in Germany, and you can see it by the disguise that I'm wearing. Today we're speaking about the cast and the characters of our beloved GoldenEye, including some of the dialogue and costume design. So I got my hat from the Russian military. It's a marine hat, so... Of course. Welcome back, Yannick. Привет. Как дела?
Привет. Очень хорошо, и ты?
Oh, you say also good. That was my line, but okay.
Okay, let's cut it down. I can just say хорошо, и ты, спасибо.
Очень хорошо, спасибо. Yeah, great. Let's start at the very beginning. I mean, in last episode, we spoke about the beginning of GoldenEye, the opening sequence with the dam, and with the Arkhangelsk weapons facility, of course, where we got introduced to the then new James Bond. So Pierce Brosnan is, of course, our first member of the cast that we have to speak about. Yannick, give me your thoughts on Pierce.
He's probably the only man who really, when thinking or talking about him, he turns me into a woman almost, because I absolutely love him. He's just, for me, and I remember growing up, that was already the sentiment, is that he was my male hero. He was my male guy you looked up to, the guy you aspired to be, the guy you wanted to be like in all aspects. Because, of course, he looks incredibly handsome, still does, at the age that he's today. The posture, the stride, the way he talks, his voice, his composure and everything. He's just... I would say absolutely, with no doubt, he's my favorite actor. Maybe not even particularly because of his acting skills. He has a wide range of acting skills, but it's just the overall package is just perfect. But of course, back when he was cast as James Bond for GoldenEye, I was not aware of all these things. I was still much too young for all of that. But I just remember already him being the guy I looked up to, I didn't know what that meant when he was Bond and everything, but of course now looking back at it, it was great to be able to grow up in that time when it was his turn, and when, at least for my taste, opening a big can, was the best Bond run in the 90s. So a lot of people will object, but honestly I don't care, because it's my opinion, it's how I feel. And what a gift to the world that was. And what is your sentiment?
And I was just thinking about it. He gets a lot of hate for his Bond tenure. And we talked about that before. We don't know where that is actually coming from. Because, as I said in the last episode, it was the first Bond film I saw in cinema. So he was my first Bond. He will always have a place in my heart. I could not imagine somebody else in that role, in these particular films that he did. I cannot imagine any other actor doing that, because he did such a great job, and I always wanted to be like him. I mean, when you were young, you were posing with guns in a nice suit and whatever, and you tried to copy what you just mentioned, the stride, the hand in one pocket, you know, and then just doing exactly that. I know I tried it in Hamburg, recreating his stride going towards the Hotel Atlantic. I know. And sort of looking over your shoulder. You tried to copy that. I cannot walk like Connery. I would never try. Or Dalton or whatever. But what I always felt now, after having seen all the Bond films and rewatched them a couple of times, he is like, how would you say that? How would you put that? If you throw Connery and Dalton and Moore into a bucket and you shake it and give it a 90s polish, and you have Pierce Brosnan. Because he's got that certain charm of Sean Connery. He's got the
Definitely.
style of Roger Moore, also
Absolutely.
the wit, and just about enough of Timothy Dalton's edge so that it feels like a best of Bond
Right.
mix, you know?
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
and then you put over this 90s polish with the Brioni suits and everything, and you have your Bond for the 90s. I think it was a perfect choice. And as you said, he is a very fine actor and very big range of what he can portray. And he's very charismatic. I think he's very charismatic.
Insanely. Yeah, absolutely.
And that made him the perfect Bond. What about looking at the role, when he is actually in the role in GoldenEye? Is there something that appeals to you particularly? How he manages his Bond?
Of course, these things can only be said with hindsight. And because, like I say, and we've talked about this in the last episode, back in a day when we were younger, first of all, and second of all, when we were just wrapped up in this experience of a popcorn cinema movie, you didn't focus on these things that we think about nowadays with so much time having passed. And now we can analyze much deeper and further. And I have to say that I think the whole package is exactly what you mentioned. He is not a weakling, but he is still somewhat a little bit vulnerable. So you see, I know I hear the voices in my head, people saying that he's like this cartoon figure, like Bond running through a platoon of Russian or Soviet soldiers and being shot and not getting wounded. But still, I mean, he got wounded, he got beat up. You could see his weaker side, but he did not cherish it. He did not dwell on it like it's been done in the last couple of Bond movies, where everything is drama and end of the world and depression and things. And I mean, that's kind of the way I try to lead my life. Of course, we all go through trials, tribulations, but you try not to be too phased or too hindered by them. And that's what I liked about him. He notices it, and I always tell this example. It's not from GoldenEye; it's from Die Another Day, where he kind of hits on what was her name? Frost. Oh my God.
Miranda Frost.
Miranda Frost. Yeah, sorry, the first name escaped me. And then she really clearly just turns him down, and he just goes like, oof. But then life continues. Okay, that was nothing. Let's carry on. That's not that bad. And that's the kind of thing. And also the way he carries himself in action scenes. And then still, like you said, these little hints of humor and little hints of things that reflect more a little bit, but not as. Sorry for the harsh word. I'm a big fan of Roger Moore, but not this kind of silly comedy. It's just in the situation that's very serious and tense. He comes with these one-liners, and I think that works great. And so this whole thing really sells him for me. And we had all the things. Of course, like you mentioned, he looks great in a suit. I mean, you can put suits on all types of body shapes, and sometimes it just doesn't look. He always looks fantastic in a suit, especially in the 90s. I hate modern suits where they're so, everything is so tight and the pants look almost like jeans because they're so tight. You could see in the 90s they had these more broader, they came out the power suits. Everything was a bit broader and it fitted him perfectly. The hair that he had still has. So just everything is perfect there. And also, he was not like, Daniel Craig kind of buff, like overtrained. It's almost unrealistic. But he was also not like very slim. He was just right there in the middle. And
True.
So all perfect for me. What do you think?
I feel the same way. And there is a good connection to M, portrayed by Judi Dench, because she also wears a power suit, very much dressed like a businesswoman would dress in the 1990s, especially with such a high rank that M has within the British intelligence community. It played off each other perfectly. Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what I always think in the way how he started his Bond career with GoldenEye. In the last episode, we spoke about the 6-year hiatus between License to Kill and GoldenEye. the crumbling Soviet Union, political systems changing and chaos erupting from it. I personally think that his representation of Bond in GoldenEye is, although it is very smooth and stylish, it's also very ironic and haunted by the question if he himself as a person is obsolete in this world.
Yep. Right.
And that is a very, very important point. And to go back on this quote by his superior, M, where she calls him a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, she actually critiques the way he handles himself.
Absolutely.
And she basically says, you are obsolete, you are a thing of the past. And that is the question that film raises the entire time, and it makes us think. Bond's very relevance is questioned inside his own adventure film.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, right.
And that is really good because it turns the character into a thematic battleground, if you wish.
Yeah,
With the valid question, is there still room for a person like this in a post-Cold War era that we had already entered in 1995 when the film came out? So we were already post-Cold War. The film says clearly, yes, Bond is still relevant. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made it and certainly wouldn't have made another. But only if he evolves as a character.
Exactly.
And I think Brosnan helped Bond back onto the big screen. He brought Bond into the next millennium. And he did a fantastic job. Whoever says different has no understanding, but little understanding of the Bond franchise, how to evolve it and how to move it along audience expectations in an ever-changing world.
Exactly. And you know what? That's my big gripe that I have with today's society is always this. It's getting a little bit better now because, like, let's just call it Hollywood. I hate this expression, but let's just call it Hollywood as a broader term. Is that for the last couple of years they've always pushed this narrative, of diversity and strong, empowered women, and they went completely overboard and completely exaggerated it. I mean, look at GoldenEye. You make a very good point. You have Bond, who was this Uber kind of agent for decades, but now look what he's surrounded by. Like you said, M is much more powerful than he is. Xenia Onatopp, completely fierce. She is at least as strong as him, if you will. Then you have Natalya, who is not a dumb broad, to use this expression. She's quite capable. She can handle herself. She doesn't need Bond, like in the traditional sense. And then you have even the smaller roles, like when you have... Let's pick two very specific examples that shows you in GoldenEye, like this old James Bond is done. You got like this scene with Zukovsky, who hollers at his mistress, who is singing in the background, and he tells her to take a hike. And what does she do? She does not. Oh yeah, right. And she goes like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then in the Severnaya installation, you got like the conversation between, or the not conversation between Natalya and Boris, and then she yells to Anna. And then she said this, this also famous quote: "He doesn't know a woman if comes set on his head." You see, all the women that are in this movie, they're not damsel in distresses. They're not dumb. They're not helpless. They all really make a point of having these women all be independent and strong, and that was 30 years ago. So I find this whole narrative nowadays of strong, empowered women is so ridiculous because it's been done a long time before you started to talk about it.
Yes, and it has been done a long time before GoldenEye.
Absolutely.
Octopussy was a very strong woman. She was a businesswoman. She was a smuggler and a businesswoman. I wouldn't necessarily say that Honey Ryder in the first Bond film was a strong woman because what did she do? She collected stuff on the beach. Well, yeah. But many other women, Pussy Galore, for example, a pilot, a very skilled and trained pilot, and probably assassin, who fought a moral dilemma inside herself towards the end of the film, and who has a clear stance towards men, especially towards Goldfinger, because he makes advances towards her, and she clearly rejects him and says, I'm going to buy a lonely island where only I live and no men allowed, something like that.
Right.
Partly because in the book she was a lesbian.
Yep.
But, okay, let's stay with the women of GoldenEye.
Right.
Since you mentioned Natalya not being a damsel in distress, absolutely. I would go as far as to say that she's not even a love interest in the film.
Right.
Not 100%.
I get Yeah, I have the same sentiment. She's not like sorry for the expression, a sex toy. Absolutely, you never get that feeling.
Yeah, you have to mention these kinds of things, and you have to use this kind of descriptive language because previously they have been, and GoldenEye turned all of this around. It is a totally different world for Bond to move in. Not only have the political systems changed, but also the way he behaves himself, how people behave towards him, including the women. First and foremost, the women. And as you said, Xenia Onatopp, she is almost as strong as Bond. A lot of things in this film act as mirrors. Same as Alec Trevelyan. He is a mirror to Bond. But we come to him at the very last. He's the very last because he's the villain. But Natalya, not a love interest, not even a plot device. She's very skilled. She's a programmer. And one of the few people in the film, including the audience, who understand the GoldenEye satellite and how it works. Right. So she's very, very able to do that, and she helps Bond to save the day in the end. She fights alongside with him. She's resourceful, capable. Right. She actively drives the plot forward, although they made her look really like very simple clothing when we speak about
casual.
Wardrobe.
Right.
Casual pullovers, short dresses, a thick coat when she arrives in St. Petersburg and all of that.
Right.
But overall, a very capable Bond girl. It's even difficult to use the term Bond girl, but since Martine Beswick once told me, don't use anything else. Don't say Bond ladies or Bond women. We are Bond girls, and we're very, very proud to do it. Yeah. So I will always use the term because I basically have Martine Beswick's blessing.
She survives this massive explosion in the Seven Isle facility, so that's already makes her almost like an action figure already. And then in the end, and in the lift. In Arecibo, she gets the pistol from Bond. She knows exactly how to use it, etc. You don't see her shooting, but she knows her way around guns as well. And so, like you said, but you're right. She doesn't, for most of the film, she doesn't feel like a Bond girl.
No, not at all.
She doesn't feel like it. Yeah.
No, not at all. Difficult question. Would you have dated her, Natalya Simonova?
No.
Why not?
Well, let's just settle with she's not my type.
Okay.
Would you have?
Well, simple question, simple answer. No, probably not.
And why?
I wouldn't say she's not my type. She is my type. She's very, very beautiful. She's very capable, IT-wise. So I really love that. Where, for example, I love girls that do video games. I like strong women, definitely. Not as strong as Xenia Onatopp, maybe, but...
yeah, that's pushing it.
The question, would I have dated her? I don't know, because at the end of that, if you don't do your job right, you're dead. So... And she uses her body like a battlefield. So... including the wardrobe. All of it fits together. It's just there to kill you.
Yeah, but then again, I would have to make the point that Famke Janssen in GoldenEye looks spectacular. She's such an insanely beautiful woman. The facial features, the height that she has,
absolutely,
the wardrobe and everything. I think GoldenEye, and also the same goes for Izabella Scorupco, Natalya. She never looked as good in a movie as in GoldenEye. Because usually she has completely different hair. She has, I think, longer blonde hair. And this hairdo that she had in GoldenEye, I found very. It was. I think it was supposed partially to make it look a little bit like you said, with the plain clothes and a little bit nerdy, geeky almost.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you would imagine someone who is in IT, a female IT worker. But Famke Janssen, of course, she was wow. She was spectacular, and I think again, like Scorupco, and that was the link I tried to make, is never looked so good a movie like in GoldenEye.
Yeah. And staying with Xenia Onatopp, Famke Janssen, she is one of the most outrageous femme fatales ever. Not just in the Bond series, but overall in 90s action cinema. There has never been anything like this.
No.
She literally kills men during sex, crushing them with her thighs. I mean, how do you come up with something like that? I mean, whoever had that idea, it was a great idea. Because it's not just what it is. Everything has a meaning. We established that in the last episode. And she eroticizes violence.
Absolutely.
She makes violence erotic. And this is, when you think about it, it is an inversion of Bond's own sexual charisma that he's had over the years, and the power that he has in GoldenEye. I mean, think of the scene in the bathhouse, you know, when they meet each other. He comes out of the pool, so he's bare-chested and everything. She's half naked. I think she's in a bathrobe or whatever. And we have to assume that underneath there's not much, but where Bond seduces and survives these kinds of situations, she does the exact opposite. She seduces and destroys. And
I mean, think about a situation where Bond is the one who has to stop the sexual progression of the situation. I mean, you've come a long way when you
Absolutely. Well, and this sadism that is exhibited on screen it fits this 90s aesthetic perfectly. Darker, sexier, more outrageous, even more over the top. And because with Dalton they scaled it back a lot because there was the HIV pandemic and whatever. And in the Moore era everything was a bit more flirty. And witty, but this is really a sudden and welcome change because having that kind of power over men and being able to crush them with your thighs or make violence such an erotic thing is also being a strong and powerful woman. Just that she's very, very over the top and full of unrestrained chaos. But as we established in episode 1, the chaos is sort of the groundwork for GoldenEye. After the crumbling of the Soviet Union, there was chaos, and she's part of that. She's not motivated. But what is she motivated by? It's not money. It's not ideological. No, it's
exactly. And I think. No, you don't know, and the thing is, and also, I think I have not quite figured it out yet why, but there's certainly a reason why. There's this little scene where she actually points, or where Bond points out that her accent is Georgian. I mean, Georgia, of course, was part of the Soviet Union, broke away as well, and I mean, Georgia is a very special case again. Not only in the Soviet construction, the Soviet Union construction, but what happened to the country after the fall of the Soviet Union. There's certainly a link why they point out that she's actually from Georgia. But like I say, I have not quite figured it out what the meaning behind would be precisely. That's a lot of just guesswork. But what you're right, and I mean, they're not subtle about it. I mean, they really shove it down your throat that she enjoys this violence. I mean, practically, if you think about it, every scene that you see her, she enjoys killing someone on the frigate, in the Seven-Naya installation, then with Bond in the sauna, like you just pointed out, when she in the jungle later. So practically every scene, except maybe the ones in the casino, she is just enjoying killing people.
Yeah, well, she generally enjoys violence, and the moment I realized that she enjoys Bond's violence is when they are on this rocket train and Trevelyan has this image of the tank in the tunnel and he says he's going to derail us, or she says it, and she has this smile on her face.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
She says, like, incredible. So that's not what she said, but she likes that. She likes that this is the next thing that is probably going to happen. And what went through her head? Oh, how did I not think of that? But it's ingenious. Wow, so many people are going to die. She enjoys that.
She enjoys it.
And it makes her absolutely creepy and unpredictable and ultimately unforgettable as a character.
Yeah, absolutely.
There have been no others that I can compare it to, except maybe Miranda Frost. She was exquisitely evil in her own way. She wasn't that forceful woman that would use her body to kill somebody, but from the dialogue, she was very sharp in the dialogue, and they had some great scenes together.
That's a good point, because I think that's the distinction you can make. Miranda Frost, everything was about the job, was about serving someone, and it was strictly. And you could see, like you said, she was always very distant. You could see that this is a job, and she does what needs to be done, but she gets no enjoyment out of it. Xenia is the complete way around. She works for someone, but in the end, like it's suggested or like it's portrayed heavily, she does it all for her own amusement and enjoyment. Personally.
And this is very well represented in her costume as well. I mean, we spoke about Natalya's clothing, which is very down to earth, very subtle. I wouldn't say housewife, but
plain.
Plain. Exactly, plain. But when you look at Xenia Onatopp's, and we said Brioni masterfully tailored to Brosnan's appearance, and you said today really, really difficult because everything's slim fit. But Xenia, everything with her was slim fit. I mean, the costumes, bold and sensual, sharp, plunging necklines, tight leather military uniform, like tailor-made for her, and military uniforms are usually not tailor-made for exactly that one person, but it needed to emphasize her body. You said she's quite tall, so the costume department really had to work their magic too, and there are drawings of that. Let's see them here in the stream. A lot of ideas went into that. And how to make her appearance more striking, these dark vampish colors, blacks and deep reds, which associated her with the danger that she's representing or that's emanating from her. And and her clothes are essentially weapons.
Absolutely. And I think at this point we could also talk a little bit about Debbie McWilliams, of course, was casting director, I think constantly since For Your Eyes Only, up to the latest Bond movie. And I tried to read up a little bit how, because I was really wondering, like we've established many times now, we're both total GoldenEye massive super fans. And I was wondering, why, for instance, I mean, it seems a very random question, but why, for instance, did they cast Alan Cumming as Boris Grishenko? Why did they choose Robbie Coltrane as Valentin Zukovsky? I'm more talking about the peripheral people. I hope I'm not too early with that with this topic. But just talking about Debbie McWilliams briefly, and I found out that she actually was always very strong with finding character faces, and GoldenEye is full of it. There's almost no face that you cannot recognize or that you can forget.
That's true.
And that's why I love GoldenEye so much. Also, even the tiniest little role that's somewhere in the background or has just one line of dialogue in the movie is just perfectly cast. It's a character face, and that's one of her hallmarks, that she really chooses people who are not too well known. At least that was the case for GoldenEye. They should not have been international superstars already. and that had really character faces and that have a bit of a history with stage work and so on. Robbie Coltrane, for instance, he was known for a couple of roles in theater and also I think television. And of course he's a brilliantly funny man, and I think he does an amazing job as Zukovsky, or did an amazing job as Zukovsky, being threatening and funny at the same time. That's something you have to pull off first. Alan Cumming, perfect. So really a lot of love for Debbie McWilliams, who did an outstanding job for the GoldenEye cast, really.
Absolutely, and especially in the 90s. I mean, when you advance into While Tomorrow Never Dies, well, Dr. Kaufman, a character face, great character actor. The World Is Not Enough. You had Goldie, and all these people who it looked like a, I don't know. You put the most random characters into a box and you just open it, and then you have The World Is Not Enough. I mean, and great talent from really, really big to relatively small. I mean, Sophie Marceau was really big, and Goldie is a musician. So but putting these together, yes, of course, Debbie McWilliams, she had a brilliant hand in selecting these people, and I'm pretty sure the casting process was always very fast. Because she knew the executives of most of the agencies. And Alan Cumming, for example, and of course Robbie Coltrane, since the 70s and 80s, and also heavily in the 90s, they were featured on British television all the time. And Cumming, I think, also has a musical training, so he does a lot of theater and a lot of musicals. I think he can sing as well, because a lot of British actors that I have seen in different things, in comedy series or something, I have seen in musicals as well. So that's really something. Right. Let's stay with Boris for a moment. I wouldn't say he's a minor character, but he's a side character for me. What do you think makes him unique in GoldenEye?
Well, first and foremost, the appearance. You know, these broken glasses that are like patched back together. This very famous shirt with these hideous collars, then these cargo trousers. You know, those olive green cargo trousers. So again, you know, stuff that you would on one side believe that just like someone, apologies to everyone working in IT, would dress himself if he was to pick out his own clothes. But still, it's something striking. And then also the way he's introduced is he's instantly, you know, he's this geek, he's this nerd, and he's this computer worm who is not, who cannot fathom what his actions in front of a screen do in the real world. And they, you know, in the mid-90s, where the whole internet thing started to gain a little bit of traction, that was also the right time to come up with that sort of thing. And and he does a brilliant Russian accent as well. And I think they also do themselves a lot of service if they, in such movies, they just let those characters, if they're supposed to be Soviet or Russian or Georgian or whatever, if they just let them speak with an accent, speaking English with an accent, because most people who have European or British or American mother tongues, they don't do well with talking Russian. It always sounds very, very fake, and you can instantly tell it. Yeah. There are exceptions. We made a reference to this in the last episode, The Sum of All Fears. Surprisingly, Kieran Hines, who plays the Russian president who takes over, he does very well with when he speaks Russian. It sounds authentic. Yeah. But in the case of GoldenEye, I mean, most of the Russian characters, you never hear them speak Russian. Ourumov, Zukovsky, Famke Janssen, well, except when she's swearing. Alan Cumming, you never hear them talking Russian, and that's
just the defense minister.
Yeah, again, he swears. He's just swearing, but right. Yeah. Molchiche. Right.
But that's what we learn first, don't we?
Right. Yeah. Right.
I can swear in Russian too, so. But I will not do it.
Yeah. What do you think about Boris?
I think basically what you said, but I think he's a caricature of the typical 90s hacker. Because it was well represented. A lot of people were like that. A lot of people wore these kinds of clothes. I did not personally know computer hackers, but we had, of course, IT classes in school. And those who enjoyed that a little bit too much were the ones that dressed differently, drastically different from us. But when you look at his persona in the film, what makes him a caricature is the way he behaves. He's very arrogant. And also very juvenile, on the other hand. He's like a child, like a little child, playing with a toy that is intensely powerful, because what his character actually symbolizes is the shift from the Cold War, where they used nukes and tanks and rockets, to hacking, cyber attacks, and ultimately information warfare, something that was continued in Tomorrow Never Dies with the world of media. And that is the world we live in now. Because that is how the next war will be fought, with cyber warfare. And so GoldenEye could be used, or could be described as a premonition for that. And Boris represents the rise of the digital threat. And we see him actively do stuff in a very childish way. I mean, the animations were also I don't think that they were so advanced. It was just for a cinema audience, of course. Hacking is numbers and code, but it looks boring on a screen. So that's why they had this nice map, and certainly it would not have been that fast. But also he's quite flamboyant, and what always sticks is this line: "I am invincible." And this piece of dialogue it represents his juvenile appearance. Because nobody is ever invincible, but he thinks very highly of himself, which makes him arrogant.
True.
You know?
Yeah.
But
absolutely. Well put.
A very very nice side character, I thought.
And I think the dynamic is interesting that you have this Bond girl in Natalya, and then. And she's kind of the middle piece between the good guys and the bad guys. And that mixes everything or muddles up everything even further. So everything is a little bit, it's again, crushing structures, crumbling systems, crumbling order. Again, it's symbolized through that as well. Like we said with Trevelyan, who's was on one side, is now on the other side. Everything is somehow mixed and it's not clearly structured. And again, you can take that whole as a symbolism of that time.
Yeah. And just when you bring these two in connection, Natalya and Boris, I mean, they've been colleagues. We see them in the control center, and she makes fun of him. What you said, he wouldn't recognize a woman if she sat on his face. But later, I always found it weird when on the train she doesn't realize that he has switched sides. And she's sort of like, she comes across as naive. But when you think about it more deeply, and especially what we established already, this was the situation after, or in a post-Cold War era. You did not know who the enemy was and who is your friend. So that again is a symbol. People were unsure. Who can I trust?
Right.
Who has switched side and who hasn't? It's a very nice analogy. Is that the right word? Yeah. Sometimes I lose my English.
Yeah. Well, tell me about it.
Yeah. I can always switch back to Russian. It's no problem.
Right.
Which brings me to General Arkady Grigorovich Ourumov. Everybody's been waiting for that and saying, when do they finally discuss Ourumov? Portrayed by legendary German actor Gottfried.
Fantastic. Can I just open with a question? Before
Please.
GoldenEye, have you ever seen Gottfried? And or where have you first seen him? Because I remember I was of course very young back then, but we were talking about German television last time, which of course we mainly consumed in Switzerland as well in the 90s, and we talked about a lot of Roger Moore, James Bond reruns. But I also remember that Gottfried John was in quite a number of German movies, and I'm not talking about the famous ones like Asterix and Obelix. Of course, that was a French production, but he was in these not independent but kind of low mid-budget movie. Exactly, but he was always striking. So I was wondering, where did you first notice or see Gottfried John?
I didn't. I really saw him first in GoldenEye.
Okay.
I didn't see him before in something. I saw him after, but only in a handful of productions because he chose roles in films that not necessarily interest me.
Okay.
Yeah. Or in his later years, he was already quite old in GoldenEye. He was an established actor, that's true. That's partly why they picked him. And, of course, because he looked Russian. And he looks particularly Russian in GoldenEye. He does not look so Russian in other productions, but that always depends on hairstyle and costume. He was on German television a lot, but in our specialized, detective series, Tatort, for example, we have that long-running. I think it has over 3,000 episodes. I don't know. Crime Scene is the translation, but it's on every Sunday, and in some cinemas you can even go and watch it on a Sunday with your friends. But I think almost every Sunday. That's like a family thing. Right. The children are in bed, and the parents watch Tatort, Crime Scene.
Right. It was like an old school German version of what you nowadays would know as Navy CIS or stuff like that.
Exactly. Something like that. Yeah. And because of his appearance, he would mostly play villains exclusively. I have seldom seen him in anything else. But I think for GoldenEye, he was just perfect. It was everything from the first appearance behind that glass and the way his entrance is filmed, because he's sort of walking fast, but also slow.
Yeah, right.
It is very, very, very interesting. And the look on his face, it's and the way he looks down on what is happening in this in the chamber, where Bond and Trevelyan are setting set to blow up the gas tanks. And look at that scene again, people, when he enters this room with all the soldiers behind him. His look is like such an arrogant look. What do these foreign agents think they are doing in my country, which doesn't even exist anymore? So he is the perfect archetype of this post-Soviet general.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Very and also, arrogant, dignified to the outside, outwardly dignified, but inwardly, as we learn later in the film, corrupt to the core. And he did a great job with that.
Exactly. And also the cinematography is great. Like you mentioned, his entrance is imposing and menacing. And there's also a point to be made about the camera angles, because often, like you said, just the scene you mentioned, also later in the confrontation with 007, he's often shot from slightly underneath the chin. And so you always see like the shoulder boards with the stars on it. And then, of course, you have this because and I hope I don't this is not a political statement, but I always think that these Russian officer uniforms, like they used to be, they look so, and especially because Gottfried John, of course, also was very slim, and he had those leather gloves, like those boots that come always almost to the knee. And just these Soviet uniforms looked so imposing and cool in a way. And then, of course, you have this, like something similar that you wore in the beginning, is these type of visor hats that the officers had and so on. And the interesting thing is about it, they came in different variations, not only the colors or the symbols here, but also the size of the upper part of the hat as well. And if you look closely, I mean, this is Yeah, this is sort of a medium.
Even I have to look at that. Usually I look in the camera all the time, but even I have to look at that. I love it.
Yeah, it's very nice, and this is a medium. The upper part is medium sized, but if you look at his visor cap in the movie, this part is huge. This is like not double as big, but it's really huge. And then when you see him like from the front, like this, and this comes up even more. This gives him this grand posture. And there's this thing when they say when you meet wild animals or animals out in the wild, you have to make yourself big and imposing to sort of scare them away. And it's the same effect that they use with him with this huge visor cap. He is already a tall guy and an imposing guy with this big nose and this kind of slightly destroyed skin that he has, probably from acne. But Jürgen Prochnow, a very, very famous actor, you always recognize him by that he's this very scarred skin. He has that as well, partially. And so he looks also very imposing. They do a very nice point of establishing him as that, like you said, like just this hard-ass Soviet, he was not a general back when they were in Arkhangelsk. He only becomes a general later. He's a colonel there, of course, a colonel. And so again, great introduction. And I just, like you said, I love his face. Speaking about character face, I mean, that's one of them. And I would say you can't pick a favorite character in GoldenEye because Sukovsky, Ourumov, Bond himself, they're all just fantastic.
It's true. It's a lot to choose from. And I can tell you from experience, it doesn't just help with animals to make yourself big and scream. It also works in the city center if you want your peace and quiet. I do it all the time.
Okay.
That's why every time you call, I'm in the courthouse.
Oh, now, okay, that explains it. See, there we go.
Yeah. Some things you shouldn't do, but okay. Yeah, but before we come to Trevelyan, of course, Ourumov works for Trevelyan, but has no real ideology. That is something interesting. He doesn't care about these things. I find, nor about betrayal.
Right.
Because he can't betray his country because it doesn't exist anymore. What he wants to do, I think, is also villains. They want to survive and come out on top. Preferably before Bond. But Ourumov also wants to survive in a world after the Soviet Union. So he's looking for alliances. And that sort of justifies not his actions, but him being there and being so present in the film.
Right. And let me just interject with another thought about this. There's another movie who has a great line that really represents what went on there. It's the 1997 action film. I think it was in 1997 that it was released, The Peacemaker, starring George Clooney. And they have this scene where they, I think, exactly, where they meet in Vienna with this famous German actor, Armin Müller-Stahl, who plays this Russian, again, also a Russian officer. And they have this covert talk in Vienna. And then they talk about sort of what goes on, the motivations of the bad guys in that movie, because the actor Armin Müller-Stahl is an ally to DeVoe, I think was his name. Tom DeVoe, yeah. And he says this line that and there's also that plays in GoldenEye that's very important. He says, you have to see the way we grew up. You have to see we grew up in crumbling things, and when you were in these established military ranks, even in the Soviet Union, you were something better. You were treated better. You had access to more resources to a certain degree. Of course, you were not in the Politburo, but you still were better off than your usual citizens. And so when they saw the system crumbling down, they still wanted to get something out for them to be better off than anybody else. And you can put Ourumov in the exact same category.
Absolutely. Same as Xenia Onatopp. So both of them came out of post-Soviet chaos, and they have a big hand in corruption. They are corrupt to the core, and they are thrill killers.
Yeah.
They do it for the thrill because there's nothing else left to do it for. It's not the money, and it's not ideology. Xenia does it purely for the thrill. And you see that in that scene in the control center where she mows everybody down with the machine guns. Never has that been so clear.
Right.
The only person who is not from a crumbling system is M. But she critiques Bond for being part of an old system or having his old ways and they don't work anymore. And it was the first time that Bond has a woman as a superior. What do you think about Judi Dench in the role of M, a role that she held for many, many, many years, carrying it into the Craig era, which also feels kind of odd, but certainly for the 90s and for Brosnan's tenure. What do you think about her character?
So thinking about back when I first saw GoldenEye, when I was, again, a really, really young kid, much too young to actually, I would have not been allowed to see GoldenEye, but those were easier days, you know, the parents were like, what the hell, it's a movie, I mean, what can happen out of that?
Exactly.
And, yeah, right, and so I was a kid, I did not think about all these things, but I always loved her because, again, it's the same like you had with Gottfried. I never saw her before. Of course, she was a very famous actress and so on, and has been in movies and television series and stuff like that. But I still loved her role. I actually, even as a small kid, it never appeared weird to me that Bond would have a female superior. Again, of course, I also didn't come with the package, with the luggage that M always was an old man. But I just completely believed her. Of course, now with hindsight, that you know that of course in these times the actual MI6 got a female lead and or a female a female boss. I'm just the word has just escaped me, and all these things. And of course, I always felt like I wouldn't want her to be my boss. But then again, you could say, well, she is stern and she is very strict, but still, even in GoldenEye, she appears human. She has this human, relatable quality, even though they go through all sorts of lengths to make her appear very stern and like a very strict boss.
Where do you see the relatability? Where do you relate to her in a specific scene? Because I have a different.
I don't know. It's not something that she said or that she done. It is something that just, I don't know if it's in her eyes or I don't know what it is, but still, I wouldn't say you see a little girl in her, but you still see a nurturing, caring. Of course, in later Bond movies, they kind of introduce that human side a little bit with quotes like in The World's Not Enough, like when she says this line about the instinct that every mother has. They inject a little bit of humanity into her as opposed to just a stern boss. But I can't tell you for sure what it is, but still, I felt maybe because she appears a little bit like a grandmother. Maybe it was also that, you know, like a sweet grandmother.
I never had that feeling.
Okay.
I never saw any relatability to Judi Dench's M in GoldenEye. I thought. Comparing her to the older M's portrayed by Bernard Lee, Robert Brown, many of them were like you could say, father figure to Bond. And there have been many exchanges that were either witty, but never overly strict. But Judi Dench's M is really a tough bureaucrat, and she, in just this one scene in the office, she challenges his entire existence, his entire persona, and she forces him to justify his place in this new modern world. In the very first film of that new actor, she challenges Bond to that, and it makes her very hard. It's very hard edge. There's always a but, yeah, but her authority is absolute, and there is nothing that can change that. And when Tanner speaks about her behind her back, she's suddenly there. And she says, if I want, what did she say?
Sarcasm,
I talk to my children, thank you very much. Very witty, but authority is absolute. And she commands Bond rather than indulging him. And that she is, for me, Judi Dench is arguably the single most important modernization of this new era in Bond, because she's the new order.
I think you made exactly. You make a very good point with that, saying she's like a very strict accountant, if you will. But and I can tell you exactly, I can point you now exactly to this little thing that breaks that a little bit. It doesn't take away from her authority.
It's
absolutely not.
Smile. It's probably
the smile and come back alive, because.
Smile. Yeah.
Exactly, and come back alive, because that tells you that even though she just scolded him, and even though she sends him out, and she says this whole thing about that she has no compunction sending him to his death, but that's talk, that's the boss, and then the human side comes out when she said, "Come back alive." So she still cares.
That's true.
She's not cold ass, you know.
Absolutely true, and they made her more human in the upcoming films, and they made the relationship between the two much more relatable in this constellation of superior and basically employee, worker, if you wish. Nobody likes to lose an agent. But of course, in today's world, soldiers and even agents of a foreign secret service, well, it's cannon fodder, you know?
Right.
When you look at the war between Russia and Ukraine, nobody would have said to them, "Come back alive." Probably they say something like that. Mothers say that to their sons. Which again is a nice analogy, a mother saying to her son, James Bond, "Come back alive." She's like a mother figure, but more so in the other films than in that.
Right.
And I don't know if they wanted to correct that image in the other films, if she came across as too harsh, but I think it was right for the tone of the film. It was exactly right to show not only... Because a lot of people said, and who says it? Isn't this Zukovsky who says, "I heard your new boss is a lady"? This is something. He almost says it like this is something new or wrong, that women have a leading position in something as important as the Secret Intelligence Service.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
he almost questions the executive decision that was done there. He laughs at it.
Ridiculous.
Because in Russia, women never had a superior position for anything.
Exactly. And I think, well, you just made, again, an interesting point, and I'd like to debate that, because you said maybe they corrected it afterwards. I think, and that is a thing that I've noticed and that you read about a lot, is that when women come into position of powers, and especially if you think back in these times, which was not the norm, that like a woman would lead MI6, despite the fact that obviously she would have to be quite capable, and she was not a young thing. She was an elderly woman, so of course she went through the ranks and so on. But you often hear this, that women who come into positions of power, they have to, or at least they think they have to prove themselves. And how do they do that? With being overly, or wanting to appear overly confident, overly bossy. And I think that's the reason why they made her like that in GoldenEye.
Yeah.
Because, that must have not been easy. I mean, again, MI6, of course, for decades having been only like a male field, and now she comes into this position as the first woman in this position. So I think you're walking on eggshells permanently, and you really have to distance yourself somewhat. And later on, when she grows older, like we're talking about the role, not Judi Dench. When M grows older, she gets more comfortable in her role. She's accepted in her role. She doesn't have to defend being a woman in this position all the time. So she warms up a little bit. And I think that's the progression you can also see in the arc of M from GoldenEye to Die Another Day.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. Yeah. And as we said, from the costume design, they made her exactly look like a 90s businesswoman to reflect that. Right. She's serious and she's sharp, a no-nonsense leader who has no illusions about her job or about her agents,
right.
Most famously James Bond.
Right.
Which brings us to the villain of the film. Alec Trevelyan, portrayed by Sean Bean, who obviously always dies in all of his films, sometimes very early and sometimes at the end of the film, like in GoldenEye. Again, we won't do a lot of spoilers for those who haven't seen GoldenEye. I don't know how that could happen, but yeah, Sean Bean always dies, so that's not a spoiler.
No, it really isn't.
No, it isn't. But sky is blue, grass is green. Sean Bean always dies in movies. Yes. Yeah. But he is really one of the ultimate Bond villains, I would say. Some call him flat or just an action type figure, especially after that fist fight with Bond on the antenna. But what I always thought, or when I look at it again, he's like so many things in this film. He's Bond's mirror. Probably the biggest mirror you can find in that film, because he is a trained MI6 agent. He had the same training, he has the same skill set, and he had, you have to put that in past tense, the same loyalties until he hadn't.
I think I think Sean Bean is great. Again, of course, when we said over and over again that the whole cast of GoldenEye is perfect, Sean Bean as well. I think he was really. When we go to looks, it was the time of Ronin. It was the time of GoldenEye. He looked really great in that whole setting. But I have to say, I really love his role, his character. I'm a big fan of Sean Bean as well. But if you talk about Bond villains, he never comes up. You have like Scaramanga. You maybe have. He's never on. And you know what the worst thing is? Even me, as a massive GoldenEye fan, when someone asks me, or when I ask myself, who's my favorite Bond villain of all time, Trevelyan comes up really, really last. But I think that's not because he's badly written or it's a throwaway character. It's because, like you said, he's not flamboyant. He's not extravagant. He doesn't have like extreme features like Blofeld or anything with a bald head and stuff. He's a, well, if you can call it that, a down to earth, a very realistic bad guy. That makes it realistic, but at the same time, it makes him. I don't want to use the word forgettable, but it's almost a little bit like that. You know? Do you agree?
I agree with, I wouldn't rank him very high on my list, that's true. But seeing, or like I just said, acting as a mirror of Bond, it makes him very interesting, and it makes up for what he lacks in physical deformities, like the others had. He didn't need to have, because he had something much more dangerous, which was he knew Bond's habits, and he knew Bond's weaknesses. Even his worldview. He knew everything, because they were basically one and the same agent. They were trained by the same organization, by the same country. And that makes any person, if they are your enemy, even more dangerous than any megalomaniac, like Blofeld or whatever, in a hollowed-out volcano, or wherever they may sit. I think in that regard, he's very dangerous. Would I find him menacing if I meet him on the street? Probably not. But I thought this fist fight on the antenna was a very, very overly violent scene. And there you could see that both men really were well trained. If you see how that fight was choreographed, it had its purpose, because Trevelyan could deliver the same blows that Bond could, and you were supposed to see that they were not just equals, but they were once on the same side. And this is not, like we said in the last time, this is not Russia versus Britain. This is Bond versus a version of himself. And
he fights himself,
Yeah, and you can't really say that about the other Bond villains. I mean, Blofeld, as an example, was this over-the-top, didn't really need to be flamboyant. Some of them were, like, well, Charles Grey in the car with the cat in drag. That is what I call flamboyant, you know. But they were not an equal to Bond. They were not an image or representation of Bond himself.
Exactly, yeah.
And often they did not fight by themselves. They let their minions do the job. Like Blofeld in You Only Live Twice. He has this immense, like, German guy who fights Bond in this underground thing, in this very lovely designed room by Ken Adam, by the way. But they always send in the others. And if they die, it's not in such a violent fist fight, but it's in a very creative way. Like in Honor Majesty's, he's kicked out of the bob, and he gets his neck stuck and broken. So, but
that's. But by the way, sorry, that's a very good observation, because that's you could say in a way that Trevelyan is the first villain who's like very hands-on in every scene. He's front and center. He has his hands on everything. He's not, like you say, somewhere in a control room back there. He's front and center doing the thing. And I'm sorry, I just have to interject this question because it's really burning. And guys watching, you can also ask you the same thing. And I was really wondering about this. Remember back when you first saw GoldenEye, you have this big scene in the statue park that is wonderfully filmed and set up, and also with the music that ramps up a little bit, and then you only have this, and then you can see Trevelyan coming out of the shadow. What I'm asking myself, absolutely. What I'm asking myself, however, if I think back that time when I first saw GoldenEye, when I saw Trevelyan coming out of that shadow, I was not at all. It was not like this big. What? It was just like, figures. Okay. I think the scene was almost made to be like this big reveal. This big. Everything changes now. Everything is put upside down. But to me, this scene it looked great. But the scene didn't have a real impact on me. How did you feel about that?
I was mesmerized by it. I was totally in the cinema when I saw it for the first time. I was completely surprised, and I can attest to that, because when it came out on VHS, I watched the film with my grandma, because I always I don't know, I have this, like, I need certain people to watch films with. And my grandma always wanted to do something with me, but of course I was a young child and she was an old woman. So how do you get these two together? How do you do something together? Her thing was more like walks in nature, picking mushrooms, whatever, and showing me all of that. Yeah, I learned a lot of that, but I wanted her to learn a bit from my world too. So whenever I visited her place, of course she had no modern technology. She had a television with a remote you could take out and put back in again.
I remember those,
Weird. And we always did the same thing. We watched the news, and then I had to go to bed, and then I said, let's watch this film. And she did, of course, not have a video recorder. So we went into some electronics store in the village where she lived, and we rented one, because you could just do that. You could just rent one. And you bring it back after 2 days. Absolutely no problem. It was cheap as hell. And we watched Titanic and whatever, and also Bond. And she knew Bond because she once was a young woman when these films were in the cinema. And she had seen a couple of them. Of course, GoldenEye was much too brutal for her, and she disliked it immensely. But I remember that scene. I felt the need. Oh, she was very, very intelligent, my grandmother. But I felt the need to explain to her, look, did you see that? Do you realize he's the one from the beginning, from the... Wow. That's the kind of impact it had on me.
That's interesting.
It was a massive reveal, yeah, and I still find it interesting today. But that's because I'm all about analogies, things coming out of the shadows. It's again, but actually, when you think about it, it symbolizes nothing, because he's not coming back as something, and not even when they speak about the two-faced god. That's nothing, and you can't put it into the Russia context. Nothing like that. So I can understand your point. Absolutely, it's not that big as it is. It is the same as in the Skyfall song, where they said it has an operatic finish, which it hasn't. But as a character, as a villain in that scene, and we spoke last episode about this betrayal of the Lienz Cossacks in World War II, which he briefly mentions, which gives us a bit of historical context that you have to Google to understand it. But it is interesting because this gives him a morally grey foundation. He's both a traitor and he's also a victim of betrayal. Right. So it makes the character interesting, not necessarily the reveal that he's that person in that moment who is the traitor. And Pierce Brosnan acts very, very surprised as Bond, and this sort of channels the audience. But I can understand if you're not overly surprised by it. Yeah. But it was well done. It was really well done.
It was really well done. What I have to say, what follows afterwards with the subtle, sad piano music, you really, for a brief moment, you almost feel bad for this guy. It's like a very stupid analogy, but Star Wars, where in some small instances you feel bad for Darth Vader. And it felt the same, like he briefly opens up because he knew Bond for a long time. It's like a long time ally, so that's why he opens up to him. But it's like you also notice that in people, sometimes when they're able to open up, you notice them once they realize, oh my God, I have just revealed myself, that they shut down immediately. And it's the same, it's that emotional roller coaster ride that scene contains, is that you see him opening up, being vulnerable, and you almost feel bad for him. And then just as you realize that the music, the tone of the music changes, and on the lines there's that he just said, well, you know what, you really crossed me, and you really, Bond, you symbolize what is bad for me in the world, and now you're going to pay for that. And you can see the shift, and you can hear it in the music, you can see it in his face, how he turns from this like dreamy, vulnerable position to cold-faced stone to the bad guy again, and then he gets the dart in his neck, and that's really well done.
Yeah, absolutely. And having lived on this planet for some time, I can tell you there are people who will do that to you, who open up to you and sort of, I always say, lull you in with what they experienced in their life and how bad it was, just to a couple of months later ramming a knife down your back, you know? This happens all the time, and it happened to me a couple of times because I'm a good listener, and some people in my life have used that and later turned out to be absolute villains. So maybe there's also an analogy, and I would rank them higher as Trevelyan because it's about me personally. Everything else is a character on screen. But I can understand why a lot of people don't rank Alec Trevelyan very high, but it's certainly worth to think about motivation versus I forgot what I wanted to say. To think about his motivations and where he came from, what his backstory is, and why he's acting the way he does, and being a mirror for Bond. That is very interesting to think about.
And what would you make out of this very last scene? Because it is very complex when he's hanging down the underside of the antenna, and then he kind of comes up again and asks Bond, and then he has this smirk before he falls down. How do you interpret that scene? How do you think Trevelyan feels in that moment?
I think he realizes he's at his wit's end. There is nothing else that he can do. and that he has been beaten by his mirror, his equal, who is just better at this game. But the interesting thing is much more the little tiny piece of dialogue where he picks up for England James what they said in the beginning, in the opening sequence, when they come out of this shaft, and they both sort of feel the need to remind themselves what they're doing this job for England James, for England Alec. And he asks Bond again, shortly before he dies, for England James, and Bond says, no, for me. And that is a very interesting thing, because you think after this intense fist fight and all of this drama that happened before with the watch and the pen and all, a gun to his head, you would think, oh, finally I can let go of this horrible person, and then he dies and the credits roll. No, it's something very, very, very else. I think there is this dark reflection, this mirror thing, and this patriotic slogan. He uses it so cynically. He mocks the idea that Bond still believes in saving his country and doing everything for the Queen and whatnot. And just Bond's answer, no, for me, it's huge, because it signals again this shift from everything that is tied to nationalism to a more personal and morally ambiguous view. So he could have said anything else. He could have said, no, it's for Queen and country, which is the same as for England James. He could have repeated that line from the beginning. Yeah, but right. Bond has changed. Brosnan changed Bond. The script changed Bond. And everything in GoldenEye changed Bond radically for the new era. And that was the moment where even the villain realized, okay, Bond has changed and he's stronger than me, and whatever I do, my plot has failed. So it's a very violent scene. That was actually cut from the DVD when it was first released in Germany, when he falls down into the dish, that he breaks his leg and everything. That was cut.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And only with the recent Blu-ray releases and the streaming releases, I think it's back in. And he spits some blood out of his mouth. That was all cut. And then the antenna falling into his mouth with this camera zoom thing, because it was too violent. And it certainly was not like that on German television. Oh, that was
I can imagine.
It's just the dish falls down, and you know that his body is down there, but you did not see his leg break in two different positions, and then spitting blood and the dish falling into his open mouth.
Yeah.
The ultimate end. Ultimately, what happened to the dish itself. Sadly, but we will speak about that when we come to the locations, which definitely we have to speak about.
And you could also, to round this up, you could also make a point that the shadow figure and so on, because when you think about it, in both introductions of Trevelyan, he comes out of the shadow. It's first in this little compartment, this little room where he surprises Bond. He comes out of the shadow in the exact same way he comes out from the shadow into the light later in the statue park, and that's where he's like reborn. When he comes up again, but this time he's the bad guy.
Absolutely, yeah. Ultimately, so now we've gone through all of them. I think GoldenEye had the almost near perfect ensemble cast for a Bond film.
Yeah, I agree.
For a Bond film of that time, not necessarily of today, but of that time. The world of GoldenEye is one of a post-Soviet system, a new world order, and what we established, the links between the characters, Bond and Trevelyan, and Natalya and Boris, and Ourumov and Xenia, they form pairs, and they work really, really well together, not just on screen where the chemistry is really good between the actors. Chemistry does not only exist between a protagonist and the love interest, but also between Ourumov and Xenia. They play off very well with each other because they are essentially the same. And when you summarize it, what we now said, Bond Trevelyan, Cold War spy against his own reflection, Natalya and Boris, techno arrogance versus her very decent appearance, and then you have these two crazy nuts, Ourumov and Xenia, who represent the post-Soviet chaos and corruption. And above it all hovers M, posing for the new world order and judging the old one.
Exactly.
No, sexist, misogynist dinosaur, but the film in itself and the cast, it feels very rich because of the characters. And they are more than just a role on screen, and I think it was more to the cast than just portraying a role. That was a Bond film is generally more than just a job that you do.
Absolutely.
And I think it was for Pierce. It was always more than just a job.
Yeah. That's true. And I still have to bring up one point that really irks me, because today's topic of this episode is cast and crew, and of course, as Bond fans know, Martin Campbell. And I just want to point out one thing: could we please stop saying that he was one of the cyclists? Because I still read and hear about this all the time, and I have yet to find one single frame that shows him in this group of cyclists that actually only remotely looks like Campbell. He's not there. He
is not there. No.
He's not there.
No.
Can we stop saying that, please?
He is not there. Same as Maud Adams is not in Octopussy. Maud Adams is in Octopussy. Oh, that was bad. Oh, that was really bad. I tell you, I've never seen Maud Adams in Octopussy. And whatever you're saying, you saw a different film. No, Maud Adams is not in A View to a Kill. Because nobody ever saw her. She was there. Yes, she was there as a guest of John Glenn in the film crew. But she's not actually in the film.
Exactly. It would be the same like saying, well, Roger Moore was in GoldenEye just because he visited the set once. So what?
Yeah. But I mean, it's a nice way to pass the time to look for that frame by frame, because sometimes you see things that have never been seen, and sometimes you find a little gem, or you look at the films the way we do and analyze them to death, or maybe, which is not the focus of what we're doing here. It's trying to give you a broader view of the film and things that you might have not thought about yet, to achieve a different viewing experience the next time you see it, because that's certainly what we do. I mean, I know what happens in every frame of GoldenEye, but I still love to watch it, because every time I rethink things that I just said in this video, and sometimes they change, and sometimes I see something new, and I think that's incredible.
And another thing that always makes me, and it just makes me smile right now when I think about Martin Campbell, is always this little bit that was in the making of GoldenEye, where he stands on top of the bridge of the frigate, waiting for something, obviously pissed off, and he just goes like, "God, oh fucking mighty!" That really summarizes Martin Campbell so perfect.
It probably wasn't easy making that film with him if you're in the cast, so kudos to all of them that they did it and nobody dropped out, and that it became the film that it is, and I'm so happy that it became the film it is, and that concludes the episode for tonight. Almost 1.5 hours. That's really great. It's longer than the last one. So the next one is going to have Mission Impossible length. So we're going the full 2 hour 49. No, of course not. But as long as it's interesting for you, we keep going. I keep going anyway. But we hope it was interesting and first and foremost informative to you, and you like our ramblings. So be back the next time when we do the music of GoldenEye. that is, of course, Yannick's speciality, as he is composer extraordinaire.
Oh,
And we need to go into French territory for that, because the music of GoldenEye was, of course, composed by Eric Serra.
oh yeah. And we have a very special treat waiting for you when we're talking about the GoldenEye music.
Yes, absolutely. I already know what it is. It's me speaking
not
French.
right. And guys, please don't get excited unnecessarily. It's not the announcement of La La Land Records finally releasing the expanded GoldenEye score.
No, but
unfortunately it's not that.
But it will be there, I tell you.
Yeah, it has to.
These eyes cannot lie.
Yeah.
It will be there. It will come. Don't worry. But our episode comes sooner. Celebrating 30 years of GoldenEye. Yannick, thank you so much for being part of this again. And,
it was my pleasure. Thank you.
If you guys have any questions or comments or just like to leave us some love, we love a like and subscribe and some comments. And we will try to answer most of them. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time. Yannick, merci. Au revoir.
Merci beaucoup, Benjamin. Bonne soirée à toi. Hein?
Merci.
Witty.